Alright, so today I'm going to be teaching you Emuhaste and PS2 along with some other things. I'm essentially going to be showing you now how to patch new files into your game. I've already done a patching tutorial in the past, but I didn't cover a copy-paste method to make patching easier, and I also didn't cover actually adding in files that don't normally exist in the game's directory. So as you can see, Xaddgx is named BEX120_HB. Now that's Xaddgx, there you go. So rather than outright replace Xaddgx, since we want to add in a new event for the most part, we're going to instead be patching Orin in as B_EX121HB. So once you have the download for the KH2FM toolkit, in case you don't have it already, you're going to want to use the patchmaker.bat to make your file. So when you double click it, it'll open as so. And now I'm going to show you what you need to copy paste in. There will be a text document for this. Output patch is what I'll be calling it. So here you'll see some labels like your name, a number, and credits. You don't really have to worry about the number, but obviously you want to name your patches and you want to credit people properly, otherwise you're just an asshole. So here's an example of my Aqua patch that I use. I got a bunch of names there for credits. I've got, you know, a bunch of files down there. So let's see here, I'll just change the name, you know, that's me. We'll do some credits here. I don't know, the viewers for watching. Yeah, thanks for watching. That's what people always say at the end of the video. Well, I'm saying it near the beginning. That's what we call breaking the mold. Thanks to people who give money to this really niche project. I appreciate that. So you've got these file names here. You see those ins there? You're going to want to change them from N to Y, because that's basically saying, oh yeah, we still want to patch this in even if it doesn't normally exist in the game's directory. We're going to make it exist. So let's get our supposedly complete Orin stuff ready to change the name of. You'll highlight all of them, then you'll select rename with right click, and you can change it to BEX121. So once you rename those files, you'll want to also make sure the a.fm file is actually .a.fm, because it'll just change to .fm when we do that. Anyways, now we'll be able to patch those in. So let's change the name in our document that we're making here. BEX121.imset. We're going to do it for the a.fm and the mdlx as well, but just make sure it's formatted like this for the object folder, since that's where, you know, these files go. There will be other folders for stuff that we'll go over too in the context of bosses. Alright, I almost forgot _HB. Let's just add that real quick. Okay, so this is a proper patch for just purely inserting in an enemy, a new enemy. So let's save this as something else. You can just leave it in the patcher folder, put it wherever you want, doesn't matter. Yeah, sure, Orin Tutor. So first, go to your object folder. You need to have an object folder in the patchers folder specifically, so the same folder as the KH2FM toolkit, or it's not going to work. Again, I have a patching tutorial, but whatever. May as well slightly review while we're here. So now, go ahead and highlight those files, use Ctrl-C to copy them all, then Ctrl-V to paste them in. Perfect, now they're in your object folder. Look at that. Aren't they just so special? Alright, return to your patcher folder. Press Ctrl-A to copy all this, or just drag everything. Then press Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V, and now you'll see all this stuff. And if it hasn't automatically proceeded, then you're good. You have all those files in the right directory. So press Enter a couple times, and then wait for it to compress all this stuff. Now you press Enter to exit when it tells you to. by default named output.kh2patch. And then we're just going to drag that onto the toolkit. There you'll see the version, your name, and the credits will all show up there. So you just press enter and you wait for this process to complete. So wonderful, now you have an ISO with that boss in it. So make sure you go to CDVD ISO selector and you browse new ISO before you launch the game. Let's open that, and now you just boot CDVD under PCSX. Sorry, boot ISO. Times have changed. We're loaded into our game now in a horribly disgusting 30 FPS. Alright. I'm gonna show you Emuhaste now. It's going to be very useful for testing things in RAM before we actually apply certain things. And eventually I'll go over how to automate all this stuff so you don't have to manually input codes. So here we have Emuhaste. Isn't that just a wonderful looking thing? So on PCSX2 1.7.0, what we call the real address actually changes. It's just kind of random the first time you launch PCSX2 since starting your computer, at least from what I can observe. Which is no problem. It's usually 2 followed by a bunch of zeros, 3 followed by a bunch of zeros, or 4 followed by a bunch of zeros. I'll show you what I mean. So if you go to extra, then you select real address, change it to a 2, we'll snap process, and you'll see it prints out an error there. No problem, let's just try changing it to 3. And there's the XSY there, that's pretty much what we're looking for. These patches, so... well, not patches, but like this ISO, so we're good. I will show you in the future a different PCSX2 you should be using for certain tools, but for now Emuhaste works fine, so we're just going to stick with the most optimized version. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some codes here. We paste them in the right box there and we select that XQ and apply. Look at that beautiful 60 FPS. Unless you're watching this video on YouTube under 720p. So I'll go ahead and apply some other stuff here, like a widescreen field of vision. Let's do that. Same thing, we'll execute and apply that, and now you can see we're seeing things differently. Like the world is changing to suit our needs. I'm also gonna copy in this music is disabled code, because I really don't like hearing this Hollow Bastion 2 MIDI music. It doesn't seem to be working. Sometimes you have to rune transition things to work. But oh my god, the music is still going. But are you lying to me? Is that what's going on here? There are certain codes in this this game that aren't actually going to work unless you apply them in Emuhaste and then you reboot the ISO like so. Is exactly what we're going to do because I'm tired of hearing that MIDI. Alright, now we're back in and there's no MIDI playing in the background, which means now we can actually proceed with what we want to do. I'm going to teach you some basic replacements because that's what you're going to need. There are certain AI in this game that will act a little improperly when pulled out of their arena, and that's the type of thing that we need to scout out before we actually, you know, put our custom dude over that AI, because otherwise it's not going to pan out very well when we have no idea what's going on. So in other words, I'm going to be replacing Donald with DMX2 since that's the AI we're using for Orin. And I know, you're probably thinking at this point, well what the hell man, I thought we were doing execution now. I thought we were gonna test Orin, and look, we're getting to that, but no one said this was easy, so you gotta be patient. Anyways, you'll want to be on the world map for this. You're going to make a save state because save states are your best friend, especially when testing this stuff. Now, these are what we call universal character modifiers. Okay, so your universal character modifier for Donald is going to be 11CE 0B6A. We'll put a bunch of zeros there, time being. Then for Goofy, it's 11CE 0B6C. Since we're just removing him, we'll just put a bunch of zeros there. So let me open up the UCM list here. I'm going to search for Xaddgx until I can locate Xaddgx2. That's Olympus 1. Ah, there we go. Xaddgx Boss Hollow Bastion 2. Okay, so we put 8F7 there at the end. We're gonna execute and apply. Go back to the poster.
Dance, water, dance.
Alright, so we can't summon any water clones outside of that event. He also seems to be missing his sounds with the exception of his voice. And he does not appear to flinch at all. So clearly, he has some problems outside of this fight. But that's okay, because we can clone his fight, which I will teach you how to do. So, something to keep in mind here is that when you're making your custom boss, these are the types of things you need to keep in mind, both whether you want to do it in 30 or 60 FPS, and whether or not their AI actually works well outside of their event. The physics in this game are a lot different when it's just 60 FPS versus 30 FPS. One other thing I'm going to show you right now that we will come back to for relevance later, the 11CE0B68, actually the player's UCM. So if we load a save state and I inputted Xaddgx2's UCM there, you'll see, whoa, we're playing as Xaddgx. This will be relevant later on, mainly when we're doing visual effects testing. For now, we'll just move on to something more simple, and if you ever want to revert from this back to the player, you just put in 0054 for the player's UCM at the end there.
Dance, water, dance.
Okay, let's go over cloning an event along with a map. So, there are two things you need to know regarding this. There are ard files, .ard, and then there are map files. The .ard file represents what's actually going to be loaded into the map and what scenarios, or in the case of how the game actually calls them, missions, are going to be loaded in. So in your exported KH2 folder here, you know, if you don't know how to extract an ISO, again, there's a guide on that. Go to the, you can go to the ard or the map folder first. In this case, we'll go to the ard for a moment. So you can see these prefixes here, which I went over in a previous tutorial about the A&M folders, like how AL is Aladdin, BB is Beast Castle. So that still applies here. So we're gonna use another text file, boss warp elaborate. And what we'll be doing here is, first we're going to search Hollow Bastion, because this is where Xaddgx2's event took place. And the name of his map is the Castle Gate, which is 04. However, I'm going to give you a little lesson here in hex. Let's say, for instance, we wanted something at the Heartless Manufactory. We know Xaddgx2 takes place at Castle Gate, but this is just a little lesson. 0C is most certainly not going to appear on this list of ards. So we need to open up Windows Calculator, and we need to go to this drop-down list here, change it to a programmer calculator, and then we need to hover over hex, and let's type what C is, and we can see in decimal that equates to 12. So if we back out of this ard folder and open this this KH2 map viewer, also known as XPack1H, I guess. Back out of this folder here, and we're gonna go into the map folder, go to JP. Let me organize this by name. Okay, so we're looking in this case for HB12, because HB is Hollow Bastion, and 12 is the map number we're looking for in this case. At least that's what the calculator told us. So then if we drag it in and then go into map viewer here, we can clearly see this is the Heartless Manufactory. Zoom out a bit. Okay, that's a little too much. Alright. So yeah, that's the Heartless Manufactory. It's kind of looking like one of the cutscene things, but whatever. Point is, there it is. So that's how we can confirm what map is which. So because maps and ard files are separate, that means we can take any event and theoretically put it into any map we want. Sometimes some events will turn off parts of the map, but I'll show you. We need to actually go back and get the HB04 ard, because that's where Xaddgx's event takes place. So let's go ahead and get that. We're going to go ahead and copy that file. We're going to go back to our patcher folder, and we're going to go to an ard folder, make it if you don't have it. And we're looking for HB04 ard to put in here. Okay, and then we'll paste it in from our extracted folder. Alright, so now this is in the proper folder. You want to note down the event, the room ID you're going to give it, because in our case we don't want to replace Castlegate or any of that stuff. We want to add an entirely new entry for stuff. So normally in the actual list, Station of Oblivion is the last thing you'd see on a proper 2FM ISO that hasn't been modded. So let's just change this to something else. Let's change it to, like, I don't know. And actually, let's just go 90 so I don't conflict with any of my other stuff. So 5A be what it is in hex. For now, since we want that to be the value in decimal, we're going to change it to hb90.ard. And let's get out of here. Go to our map folder now. And we're going to choose something fitting to, I guess, Orin. We do fight him in Olympus, so I think what I'm going to do is take an Olympus map. The prefix for Olympus is HE, so we know the area we're going to be looking for. Press Ctrl F and find Olympus with this. And now we're going to see here. There's multiple cases of the Underdrome here. Let's go with that one, 13. So HE, that would be HE19 map. So just to confirm, we'll open up the map viewer again, drag this into it, preview it, and yeah, that looks like a case of the Underdrome. Looks like the collision is fine as well. You can see the range of collision on these maps with this tool, thankfully, so you can tell what a map's collision looks like if you're uncertain about it. Pretty useful. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this map and put it into our map folder. Go back to our patcher. We'll go to our map folder in that. It'll specifically be map. Then in the map folder you'll have JP as another folder. Then the JP folder, you're gonna go ahead and bring in your map here. We're going to be naming this to hb90.map as well, because even though we took this map out of Olympus, we're technically going to be fighting our boss in Hollow Bastion. Now keep in mind, when you're taking an event file from a world, the ard file, you pretty much always want to have the battle take place in the same world as the event normally does, because otherwise it's not going to load properly, and then your game can do all kinds of weird shit. Most notably randomly crash, which you don't want. Anyways, now we're going to be adding our new files here, so we'll put an ards/hb9.ard, space it out, yy, map/jp/hb90.map next, y. Then we'll save that. Okay, and now we need to make a new patch. So before you start making your patches, you'll want to go to PCSX2 and you'll want to shut down the game. Additionally, with Emuhaste, it's generally recommended not to do any weird codes like character replacements or warping around as soon as you load a save file, so we're going to go ahead and disable that. The general stuff like disabling music, you know, making the game widescreen and the 60 FPS is fine. So open up the patch maker, we're going to copy it in again, Control V, then we'll press enter a couple of times, and now it's going to patch again. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and get our output.kh2 patch from above. We're just going to drag that onto the KH2FM toolkit again. Then just press enter again. It will start patching. Alright, now that our ISO is made, we're just going to boot ISO again. Make sure you snap process Emuhaste again. It might work again when you boot an ISO, even if you don't, but I always do it just to be safe. Alright, so we're going to need to warp to our event now to test to make sure the map works. When you want to warp to an event, you pretty much always want to perform your warp from outside the world that you're actually warping to, because that way the game has time to properly load everything, due to it taking longer between load times when you're doing world transitions rather than just rune transitions in the world. That's very important. It's also important you make a save state there like I just did. So now, I'm going to teach you how the warp codes work. So let's go back to the boss warp elaborate file. We're going to go back to Hollow Bastion. First things first, let's recheck. So 5A is going to be where we warp to in our new area. So let's go ahead and mark this down as an entry. The 5A is going to be the map that we added, which in my case was the Underdrome. Mark that off as whatever mod we're doing it for. Anyway, since we're taking digit 04, aka we're taking Xaddgx's event from the castle gate, we're going to go ahead and go down here, paste that, and let's change this to digit 5A, from castle gate event digit to the Underdrome Aqua event digits. So this way we have a little reference for ourselves that we'll never forget if we need to go back and change something. Now we can get our digits for the warp code here. So Xaddgx's battle is 37. Let's keep that in mind. The question marks. Let's scroll all the way back up. And now we have this this code here. You only need the last 3 lines. You don't need the top one because it doesn't even work with Emuhaste. So the X's are going to be where we're warping to. As we established, that is 5A in hex. So we're going to replace those X's with 5A. It doesn't have to be a capital letter, it doesn't have to be a lowercase letter, it can be whichever. Now the question mark digits, scroll back down, we'll see Xaddgx2's battle is 37. So we're going to go ahead and change those question marks to 37. And we're going to apply that. And now we just walk into the audience chamber. I pretty much always warp from the Hall of the Cornerstone to the audience chamber unless it's something I need to do in Disney Castle.
Dance, water, dance.
So we've got an event here, but it seems we have fallen. We have fallen down, so I guess this is one of those cases where the event just turns off the collision in certain maps, or the event that normally takes place in this map actually turns on the collision. So, you know, it's no problem. We'll just, hey, we can try some of the other variations of the map, or we'll just try a different map. But as you can see, we are fighting Xaddgx2 here now. So we're well on our way to success. Alright, after a small bump in the road, we're ready to experiment with this again. So let's go ahead and do that. Going to reapply the code, considering we saved it. And as you can see, we do in fact have Xaddgx here. In the end, we've got it working, and you know, the map has its proper collision, so this is good. So we are able to fight Xaldin here. So at this point, it is probably about time that we swap in our boy Orin. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so this is the part where I'm going to teach you how to use Ps2dis. So with the magical powers of Emuhaste, we are going to make a file dump of the game. And what this basically means is we're going to be able to export all the data that's currently running through the game at a frozen point in time, and then we can search through it and find out how we can modify some things for using Emuhaste. So if you go up here, see something called file dump in Emuhaste, and we're going to go ahead and click that, and you can name it whatever you'd like. Preferably something you'll remember. Then we'll open up Ps2dis, and we'll go ahead and open, and we can just type in the name. There will be no autocomplete there. We can just select it. So we know, based on the object name that we've been working with, the Xaddgx is BEX120_HB. So we're going to type that. Make sure you type it exactly as it is case-wise, like, you know, all capital letters. And then if you scroll up a bit, we'll see his UCM there, which will indicate, okay, we're in the right place. All these digits are basically representing a letter or a number. What we're focused on is 30, aka the thing that says 0. And we are actually going to take this digit, as you can see, you know, it's highlighted there. We're going to copy the address, and we're going to bring it into Emuhaste, and we're going to go ahead and get another one down here for the moveset. This is 0 right here. As you can see, it's B_EX120, and we're highlight over it, so let you know, hey, you know, you're in the right spot. Okay, so take this address as well, and bring it into Emuhaste, and let's space them both out. Then we are going to put down 6 zeros and then the 31. And effectively what this is doing to the game is it is now telling us in Xaddgx's UCM slot 8F7, it's actually supposed to load in BEX121HB. And there's our boy. Of course, it doesn't seem like anything's happening. That's weird. I wonder what's going on. Well, we're going to solve that in the next video, but for now, that is how you can clone events and then put them in pretty much any map that you want, provided the game, you know, cooperates, and that should serve as a introduction at least to the usage of Emuhaste and Ps2dis for the purposes of making custom bosses. Eventually we'll go over automating these codes, why exactly the boss isn't working, whether it's in his event or out of the event. Eventually it'll all come together.